Hello, beautiful people. This is Vlad from Synaptic Schism, and this is episode 2 of, I guess, Orchestral Library Mixing 101, the minimalistic view of it. And today we are going to first listen to the track and try to define what is it that we want to achieve. I think that this is a very important step because often we see things about plugins and mixing and so on that it's just people putting plugins and doing things and saying that it sounds nice. What we want to do here specifically is define what is it that we want to achieve and then act to achieve those things. Okay? So first and foremost, we are going to listen to the full track. And if you want to do this exercise, listen to it, write down or think what is it that you notice that you don't like or that you like and want to improve. Things like that. Okay? So let's give it a listen. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I heard that I don't like, some things that I don't know where they are, and what is it that I want to achieve. So the track is very boomy. I feel that there's a lot of low-end build-up there. It's kind of boom, boom. And the percussive elements, both in percussion and woodwinds, for instance, they are not punching. They are not like pump pump. They are like womp womp. We need to address that too. I did not hear the ARP anywhere, so maybe I missed it or we need to do something about it. And the overall mix isn't open. It's not epic in a way. Maybe I can explain this with sound. It's more like dun, 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 instead of being like dun, 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 dun. You know what I mean? This kind of epicness. This is an adventure after all. This whole cue is about the Alex the Adventurer, so we need that shiny thing there. Okay, and last but not least, it lacks the sense of space. From what I could hear, I didn't get any space at all. It was just a collection of instruments, not really an orchestra in a space. So we want to address that. Okay, so the first step would be a static mix. A static mix is you go through the instruments and you level them and pan them in the way that it makes sense to you so that they are roughly leveled. This is the objective of the static mix, is to have a first mix. However, with orchestral libraries, if you are doing the dynamics right, which is definitely the case of this cue, there's quite a bit of dynamics there, you shouldn't need to do that. Usually, when I do static mixes is the orchestra versus the other instruments. So my starting point is the orchestra. And then if I have like a drum set, guitars, pianos, and so on, I will then do the static mix of those regarding the orchestra. And the reason for that is that the orchestral libraries developers, they already put stuff in their place. So the first violins are more to the left, and at a certain level, the brass, if you raise the dynamics quite a bit, it's the only thing that you are going to listen to in the orchestra. Stuff like that is already taken care of in a good orchestral library. And this is not an exception. The only thing that I really didn't find was the ARP, which I guess it's here. Okay, it's just these runs. So I guess I'll address it later on when I'm checking the instruments, but I think that the only thing that I would address in a static mix right now would be this harp. But I'm going to maintain my way of working, which is by default, if my dynamics are right, if the orchestra is sounding good, I'm not going to do anything with the static mix. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. So the next step is to add the space. So to add the space, we are going to pick the reverb and create an FX channel. This FX channel is going to route to the mix bus, as it should. Everything should be going to the mix bus. And then all of these things, all of the bus channels should have a send to the room reverb. Okay? The room reverb by default is this, which a large hole with a 3-second length is probably quite all right. But we'll check. Let's check. Now I'll be switching on and off the reverb so that you can listen to the difference. Now off. Okay, so the brass was it barely changed, or at least it's not very audible for me. But the rest of the instruments, if anything, I would say that the brass is even losing a little bit. The other instruments are quite cool. However, there's a boominess here. Where's that? Can you hear it like boom? Now without the... Actually, it's there from the percussion already. But further accentuated by the reverb. So we are going to do something that it's very common with reverbs, which is we are going to EQ the hell out of the reverb. And the objective of this EQ is to only keep the cool stuff going on. So let's solo this. Check this out. Can you hear the... It's this region over here. So we are going to do a pass here. Okay. Yeah, check the sound of the low percussion. Here I'm going to switch on and off this. So with the pass. Now without the pass. It's just adding more of that rumble that I didn't want, okay? I'm going to address the rumble in a bit, but right now I just want to put everyone in a space, okay? Now, one of the things that I noticed was that the brass was losing a little bit. So let's see what happens if I switch this off. I'll just leave it. It's fine. It's okay. Maybe we can address the brass later on. So now what we have is everyone in the orchestra sharing a space with that reverb, and we cut the low end of the reverb so that it doesn't increase the boominess. It's very common to EQ off the low end of a reverb just to not have that nasty stuff going on there. So our objective now is to make the mix bus sound as good as we can, okay? And then reevaluate what is it that we need to do. Now we are going to... So we are going to listen, this is the highest intensity part, so we are going to listen here and try to get the best out of these stems just on the mix bus, okay? So first things first, what I always do, 100% of the time, I don't remember the last time that I did not do this. So this EQ, I'm going to give it a name so that it's obvious, so that if we look at it in the future, we know what we are talking about. This is a subtractive EQ. We don't want to color anything with this EQ. The only thing that we want to do is remove what is there that we don't want to go further down the chain, okay? And usually what I do is I get all the rumble off. There's quite a bit of information there, actually. Let's do the following. Let's do this in solo, just to hear what's here really down at the bottom. It looks like a bass drum. Oh, those booms just... That's just going to sound. Okay, I will cut the least that I can there, because I want to keep those booms, but without all of the rumble. We shouldn't go this deep, but it is what it is. Now there's a little bit of boxiness. It's not mud. It's not this. How can I show so solo? It's not this. This is the muddy area. This is actually okay. It's more this. So remove the solo. Just a little touch. Too much. Nothing that we are doing here, we don't want to do anything drastic. We just want to remove the nastiness. Did you hear those cymbals? Like the shimmer of the cymbals just extended. The problem is that if, let's say that I do something like this, like a shelf, what's going to happen is that I'm going to remove the energy from everything. I would need to cut a lot to get that shimmer out of the plates. See, it's kind of controlled now. Let me put a little bit back. Now it's controlled, but the whole track lost energy, right? So we don't want to lose that energy, so we are going to address this directly in the percussion, or if needed, in the cymbals part. So we are not going to touch anything else in here. Second move that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fat channel. So this fat channel, this is supposed to be a mix bus channel thing, and with Studio One you can choose a bunch of different things. I don't care about all of this stuff. The only thing that I want here, is the compressor, and I want a specific compressor. I want the Brit comp. Now, I want the Brit comp because of the release. I want an auto release. I find it to be more musical. The one that I use by default, it's not this one. It's a paid one. I also use the auto release. And what we want to achieve here is just a little bit of glue compression. Because this is orchestral and it has a lot of dynamics and so on, we don't want to squash things. This is not rock or metal or EDM, okay? This is orchestral music, lives and dies by movement, okay? And dynamics is a big part of that movement. So we just want to squash it a little bit. And to be quite honest, even if I had metal guitars on top of this track, for this specific compression, I only want to take out just a nudge, just to make things sit a little bit better together. Also, the reason why I'm using this kind of compressor is because of the saturation that it adds to the circuit, because this is an emulation, okay? So, very low ratio, we will play a little bit with the attack in a bit, and then I will check and then I will lower the threshold until I have just a nudge of compression, not much. That's probably too much already. Still a lot of shimmer in those cymbals. We'll really need to address that. Okay, so for the attack, if we have a very fast attack, what's going to happen inevitably is that the percussion is going to be squashed, and we don't want that. Actually, when we listened to the track, I said that I wanted the transients to be more punchy, and we will address that, but it doesn't make sense to address that if we are going to kill it with compressors. Okay, so just leave the compressors, like making everyone like tuck in together, but not very fast. Listen to the difference. You see that the transient, the impact was almost at the same level as everything else. Check. It's just squashed. So we want a slower attack. It's much better, so we'll just leave it as it is. So we have the color, we have that slight compression at the peak of the track, so we are happy with this. Now, third thing, these three things, I always do them, always, 100% of the time. A tape saturation plugin. This is a free one. You can search for Perry TDS Mark II. It's free on the developer's website. This is a tape saturation plugin that has this really cool thing with the dynamics that we will be abusing. Now, what we want to do is at every stage add a little bit of color. Saturation brings the best and the worst of what we have, but since the sound is good, saturation is going to make things feel more lively, okay? And that's what we want to achieve. But since we are going to, for the most part, simulate that every single bus is going through a tape machine, we don't want to abuse it. We want it just to feel the track grow and then step it a little bit back, okay? One more thing about saturation. Saturation by default compresses the sound, so we don't want a ton of it. We just want enough to make it breathe, to make it feel more alive, more fuller, but we don't want to have like a lot of compression coming from saturation, okay? So let's do this. This is more than enough for me. Now, regarding the dynamics, check this out. Actually, I feel like this is compressing the sound. Okay, let's just abuse this and see what it does. Yeah, this is just compressing the sound a lot. We don't want that at all. I was hoping that I would get a little bit more transients from this, but it's definitely not. So that's it. Now, there is one last thing that we could do, and that lately I've been writing with orchestra and like a metal band, and I would definitely do this. I will just let you know how I would do it, but I'm not going to do it in this track, which is to put a limiter here. Now, the objective of this is not to limit the track, is not to do any kind of mastering. The objective of a move like this is to bring up the volume to the point where we are getting a gain reduction of like 1 dB. And the objective of that is for us to perceive the sound closer to where it would be if we would be mastering. Because with the increase of volume, the perception of highs and lows changes, okay? So if I was mixing this with a metal band, I would definitely do this, and then I would calculate the release. So 60,000 divided by the tempo of the track is going to give you the release time in quarters. Then you can change depending if you want to the release to act differently. But I would put this in whatever value I would calculate, and then I would increase the volume so that it would be, let me just lower this, so that it would be reducing around 1 dB. That would be a much closer scenario to the end part where we would be mastering. I'm not going to do that, okay? So I'm just going to remove this limiter, but you could definitely consider doing that. So just adding a little bit more gain to the listen bus. By the way, you're going to see me move this. This doesn't affect the final sound, just what I listened. So if I put this at 0 and then export, the volume will be what it's in this fader. This fader is just for our ears, nothing else. It's the listen bus. So every time I move here, it's just to change the amount, the volume of what I'm listening to. Just ignore it, happily ignore it, it's okay. Okay, so what have we done? We listened to the track, we added the room reverb, and we started to work on the mix bus with the objective of having the best possible sound that we can on the mix bus. That's all we did until now. So from a 101 point of view, which again, I repeat, I want this to be minimalistic, just very simple, basic steps for all of this stuff. This is what I would do. Now let's do the following. Let's listen to the track and I will switch on and off this and this, which is what we did. Okay, let's hear it. Can you see the difference in both in space and like how much open it is, the orchestra? But this is off. All right, sounds a lot closer to what I want to achieve. It's in a space, it's wider, there's a reduction in the boominess, but we are not done yet. We need to do more stuff regarding that. I believe that there's going to be a lot of work in the woodwinds and the percussion, and the sound that we want to achieve, the objectives that I wanted for this, we are much closer to them for the whole thing without even touching individual instruments or any bus. That's the whole idea with the top-down mixing. Okay, so in the next episode we are going to start dealing with each one of the tracks individually. Okay, I hope this helped, and until the next video, bye bye.